Welcome to The Creative Influencer, where we discuss all things creative with an emphasis on influencers. The Creative Influencer is hosted by John Pfeiffer. John is an entertainment attorney in Santa Monica, California, who represents influencers and other creatives.
This is episode 2 of the 4th season of the Creative Influencer podcast. Today we interview Kamla Pande. Kamla is the founder of Moondust Management, a full-service talent management company for digital-first entrepreneurs and personalities. Kamla shares some of her clients' secrets to success, her very interesting journey helping influencers grow their businesses, and thoughts about where things will go in the future. This is a great interview. Stay tuned. I'm joined today by Kamla Pande. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You are the founder of Moondust Management.
That's right.
And I went on the website and it says that Moondust is bear with me because it's a long 2 sentences, but I want to get Moondust is a full-service talent management company dedicated to driving career growth and sustaining longevity for digital-first entrepreneurs and personalities. And then there's some more of what you do, and it ends with Moondust helps talent make business out of their passion. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the approach that I took with Moondust is, I think, a little bit different than the typical kind of management approach in that I am focused on really growing these long-term businesses for talent. So something that can sustain itself beyond just a single, paid Instagram or YouTube post, really turning in, to a business, the passion that they had when they first started, whatever channel they started, right? So, a lot of these creators first gained a following because they were doing something they loved doing, just sheerly because they loved doing it, right? Particularly with a lot of the types of creators who've been in the space for a long time, there really wasn't a kind of career trajectory for them in the way that there is now.
Now there are more videos.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you didn't have the 8 years ago, there wasn't a kid saying, oh, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up, because, it just hadn't hit in that way.
Right.
So because of that, people were really doing this because it was something that they were truly passionate about. And my goal with my clients is to harness that passion and then try to turn it into a sustainable, ongoing business, just like any of these other kind of startup companies. So the way that we look at it is not as an individual personality doing everything from content creation to distribution to, the whole gamut of what, you think an influencer does, but rather to be kind of the founder, right? So the creative genius behind it.
Yeah.
But then, put actual people in place to help run that as a business entity. So developing, brand extensions, really figuring out how to develop passive revenue streams. So, going beyond just chasing the next deal.
I have to throw in that and we'll go through your background in a second, you did go to the London School of Economics.
I did.
No, this all makes perfect economic sense. So let me back you up and let's look at what you do from a 50,000 foot view.
Sure.
What does a talent manager do in the digital space?
So it's probably a better question. What don't I do? I think the true definition is a little bit murky. I think in the way that, it's very clear what a manager does for a music artist, right?
Right.
I think for a digital first talent, so a content creator, it's a little bit more difficult to understand kind of what those boundaries are, because in many ways, I do everything from, being a +1 travel companion to,
Well, not so much lately.
Yeah, right, exactly. Not in the last 6 months, although the last trip that I did go on before all of this was with one of my clients. but yeah, so, everything from kind of being involved in their personal lives. So helping to make sure that their, finances are in order so that they can buy a house, right? So connecting them with those people. Do they need a business manager? So identifying who else they need to surround themselves with. So that's a big aspect of what I do. And then a lot of it is also figuring out, not tomorrow, but a year from now. So how do we develop some kind of calendar? So whether that's content creation, setting goals in terms of financial. So, we want to hit X amount of revenue before the end of the year. So it's personal, it's financial. It is strategic in, the actual business side of it. And then a lot of it's creative too. So helping to brainstorm content ideas, collaborations with other creators. And then, I think there's also that sort of therapist angle that you, that job that you
manager / counselor.
It's often that way.
Yeah. I want to pick up on a couple of the things you said. So how do you keep track of all of that? Do you start with you whiteboard it out, or how do you even brainstorm the first time?
So for each of my clients, it's a little bit different. Some of them have a little bit more of a sophisticated, let's call it, infrastructure around their businesses. So some of them employ assistants. One even has a creative director, people who actually help create the content for them. And then for others, it's just them. So, I think the clients of mine who have a bigger team, my role is a little bit more kind of COO. So going in and out and making sure everything's running smoothly. And then I can go out and with those clients, seek out other opportunities. It's a little bit less worrying about how the day-to-day is running. I think for my clients who are kind of those individuals, it's a lot more kind of mapping out and what the plan is, right? And then holding them accountable after a certain period of time, saying, hey, we set these goals. Let's see where we are at for them. But yeah, it's a lot of juggling. It's definitely, in any given day, I speak to, 6 to 7 of my clients who all have completely different areas of expertise, different needs, just different dynamics, different ways of doing things. So it's a lot of kind of, taking off one hat and putting on the other. And, but it's fun.
It's fast paced. How do you keep track? Do you use software to keep track? This is kind of like in the weeds kind of question.
I probably should. So far I've been pretty successful in doing it with pretty basic resources. So, just using the very general kind of Google suite of shared documents. So it's a lot of, ongoing shared trackers. So the, Excel documents, and trying to update things in real time so that my clients have full visibility into every conversation that I'm having on their behalf. We do, for almost all of them, we have a touch base every week. But, in those kind of in between times, if they just need a quick reference, they can go and see, a shared online.
2 a.m. and I just wonder what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Although it's usually a text first. So.
Yeah. Hello. Are you asleep? You had talked earlier about, or mentioned in passing, about children now or teenagers want to grow up to be YouTube stars. So let me first ask you how you feel about the concept of influence, and then second, how you feel about the concept of people want to grow up to do that.
Yeah. The concept of influence isn't new, right? It's just the people who are doing the influence and the platforms through which they're doing it have changed. Right. So, in the same way that when I was growing up, I was influenced by the magazines that I read, right? So, what shampoo to use, or, things of very mundane kind of influential things. It's now done through a more interactive platform. So, I think it's not necessarily a new concept. I do think that one of the great things is that the content, so influence has now been democratized. So in the way that there were gatekeepers before, right? So not everybody was in the magazine, not everybody was on TV or in the movies. There was a certain look that was privileged, and a lot of that has kind of gone by the wayside. And because the gatekeepers really like that don't exist anymore. So there is the access to these platforms, and again, I mean, a lot of being found or discovered is pure luck, but we've seen this rise of communities around kind of niche categories that weren't necessarily ever shown before. And I think in that way, it's something that is something one of the reasons I'm really proud to be a part of this industry, because, I think the first VidCon I ever went to, I was just astonished at the diversity of the kids who were there. It's because I think the quote unquote influencers who get the bad rap are the ones who all sort of look the same, right? They're indistinguishable from one another, but they're not the only ones out there. There are these niche communities with millions of people engaged on a daily basis. And they're kids who wouldn't necessarily have an outlet prior, right? And they also wouldn't have had, I think, this venue to be able to share their experiences and see somebody with severe acne, for example, right? To make them feel like they weren't alone. Right. So, so I do think that the concept of influence for good, so to use that platform that you have built to draw attention to something that you're really passionate about or is important to you or is important to the world, is fantastic. I think the idea of I want to influence because I like to take pictures of myself and, I love lipstick, maybe isn't quite the angle that really pulls at my heartstrings. But I think
such a polite way of putting it.
But I do think that the bigger point is that there is something for nearly everybody, right? You just have to find it and seek it out.
So how do you spot talent with the millions of people that are on YouTube? How do you spot talent?
It's tough. I think there are, for everybody who makes it, there are thousands of people who are equally as talented who just don't. I think one of the most important things to me is, outside of creativity, of course, because I think, when you watch somebody's videos, you get a really good feel for kind of, they came up with everything. They have to be the ones to develop the concept, to actually film it. So beyond the creativity, which I think is just a baseline requirement, it's just how much fun they look like they're having. Do they look like they really want to be doing this, or does it feel like a job? And I think those who approach it as, this is a job, this is what I do, like they're bound to burn out. And I think their audiences will burn out as well. So
what I was going to say is, part of YouTube is such an escape.
Yeah,
exactly. In many instances, other than the vast knowledge you can get, but it's just an escape to live with somebody else.
Yeah.
And if they're not having fun, there's plenty of bad TV I can watch.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So I think, that just kind of from a sheer talent standpoint is something that I look for is there a real passion there? I think once you start to have a conversation with a lot of the creators, for me, it is critical that they are hard workers. I think, there are a lot of things that are just given to people with a big following. But those who understand that they still have to keep working hard and earn it, that kind of level of humility, hardworking. But then there's that kind of it factor that is the difference between somebody who has exponential growth and somebody who just kind of plateaus. And, but so much of that's just engagement with their audience. So are there, do people seem to really like them, or are people following them for some other reason? Because there is a shocking amount of hate following that goes on in the space, which blows my mind, but it's a thing. And, so I think understanding, the dynamic between the creator and their audience is also really important to understanding whether or not they'll grow.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk to my clients about how comments will affect them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's astounding to me because I very rarely leave comments, but I've never left a negative comment. What's the point?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
Okay, I heard back when bars were open.
Sure.
I heard a bartender.
I remember those days.
Yeah, I remember them too. Making a joke about a woman who came into the bar, she's sitting there, and she told the bartender she had 6 children, and right now she didn't like any of them. So, do you ever have moments like that?
I knew that was coming.
With your clients?
I've had the luxury from building this business from the ground up of being able to pick my clients. I think obviously a lot of it is referral basis, and but I've been really lucky in that I don't work with anybody I don't like. It's a career philosophy. We rarely get to do that in our careers.
Right.
And, I truly enjoy as people, everybody I work with.
So you don't have to, I won't tell anybody.
No. Of course, there's always moments where I'm like,
who's your favorite?
They're all my favorites. There are definitely moments where, I feel my phone buzz and I'm just like, not sure I want to look at it right now.
I have days like that too. So what advice would you have for someone who wants to do what you do?
Yeah. It's funny because this job really didn't exist a few years ago. And I kind of totally honestly fell into it. And, but I think the patience is a very, very important quality in this business.
Attention to detail.
Yeah, I think patience and adaptability. I think, understanding that we kind of touched on this before, but there's no job description, right? So there's really nothing that's kind of beneath you. But the sky is really the limit. Like your clients will be as successful as you work hard for them, right? So your success is intrinsically tied together. And once you understand that, I think you have a better understanding of how you can be helpful to your clients. I think the understanding why certain people have been successful in converting their influence into business is kind of a key baseline. And, but I do think that, I don't have a background in entertainment. I don't come from the world of talent. And, my education. And I do think that was a benefit for me in this because of, the way that I approach what I do. I don't, while my clients are people who I enjoy, they're not, I can look at their business objectively and say, this is the right decision for you, even if you maybe don't like it right now. And I think one of the dangerous things that often happens in this business, and it's not just for digital talent, and in many cases this happens, I think, on the music side, and traditional as well, is that managers get too close to their clients in that, they're clouded and they just can't give them the strong sound advice because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right. Shifting gears.
Yeah.
How has COVID-19 affected your business?
Well, my biggest client is a travel blogger. So right off the bat, it was a pretty big blow to our businesses. I think, it was the first thing that we did was figure out, how do we pivot? Where do we go from here? But it was a real test of, the loyalty of her audience, and their motivations. And I think the same goes pretty much for everybody, but, are they there because of you, or are they there because of your beautiful travel photos? Right. And thankfully, the pivot has been quite successful for us, and we haven't seen too much of a drop. But the first, I think, and this goes across the board, but for the first month, it was sort of like, okay, we're in this for a month, we can all just survive, we'll be fine.
If I hear one more person say we're all in this together.
Right, exactly. But I do actually think that the fact that this did impact everybody's standpoint, although obviously there are some whose businesses soared, Jeff Bezos. But, I think because of the widespread impact, it was easier for a lot of my clients to kind of understand and say, okay, this isn't me, right? This doesn't affect just my business. Everybody is feeling it. And so it kind of put some of the panic at bay, because as much as it was my job to figure out how do we make up those lost sources of income across the board, it was also the reminder that everything's going to be okay. It's making rash financial decisions during that period of time, probably not the best thing to do, right? Wait it out a little bit. So, just kind of basic advice like that. But yeah, no, I mean, it was, I've had to lower my projections for the year quite a bit. Thankfully, things are picking back up.
Just in the last month, they've picked up big.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, deal flow didn't drop too much, but average deal size did. So the amount that was being spent was quite a bit less. Obviously, the travel industry, I mean, it dried up completely. There was really nothing there. And I think there's a lot of projections that the travel space will not recover until 2022. And at this rate, I'd be surprised if it was even that. I think we'll probably be set back about 10 years, even by 2022. But I think if anything, we looked at it as an opportunity to start getting stronger in other categories.
So I want to go from COVID-19 to something more fun. I did some research about your background.
Okay.
And I found that you're a huge Ohio State fan.
Oh, boo.
You are a Michigan fan.
I am a Wolverine through and through.
It is. For those who are not in on the football rivalry, Michigan and Notre Dame, Michigan and Notre Dame, well, they do too. Michigan and Ohio State tend to hate each other. So where are you from originally?
I'm from Ann Arbor.
Okay. And then Ann Arbor is where Michigan is located.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I've been going to Michigan football games since I was 4 years old. So, obviously not this year.
Well, the Big Ten is talking about doing them after Thanksgiving.
That's what I've heard, but we'll see. My feeling is that even, the SEC will have scrapped the whole season by then anyway. So, obviously football is a big passion of mine, having grown up in a place where the stadium is bigger than the population of the town.
Well, I went to Nebraska undergrad, so the stadium's bigger than the population of all but 2 of the towns in the state.
Right. That's exactly right. Football's big business. And, to actually bring it back to influence, I think one of the really interesting developments that we're going to continue to see is the rise of the student athlete as influencer. And it's really posing a lot of challenges to the NCAA with, the inability to, pay college athletes. And, but a lot of these kids have huge followings and,
There's a bill that passed in California.
Yeah.
That the athletes can have rights to their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah. Which is, in my opinion, a long time overdue.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you can monetize it as Olivia Jade out of a U.S. dorm room, why can't the Heisman Trophy winner monetize it?
Yeah, I mean, I was walking around, wearing number 4 Chris Webber basketball jerseys when I was a kid. It just didn't say Webber on the back, right? So,
Right.
everybody knew, and Chris Webber made no money off of it. So, I think it's.
But that's going to change. That's going to change.
Yes, I think that's true.
So you left Michigan and went to work at CBS.
Yes. So my first job out of school, actually my first job that I accepted out of school was as a financial advisor. And I sat for all the exams and then I quit before I started because I was like, what am I doing? This is not for me. So anyway, of course, with an apartment in Chicago, where my lease was about to start, I was like, I got to find a job. So I went the advertising route. I really didn't know anything about the space. My undergraduate degree in University of Michigan is a research school. And so it was very much a theory-based communications education.
Right.
So, I knew a ton about Habermas, but not anything about CPMs. And so, I just kind of on a whim applied for this job, went in for an interview, and was really met with an amazing group of people who I'm still really close with, and kind of had a real crash course in digital advertising. And it was a great experience. That was obviously the kind of early days of digital video. Pre-roll videos were very new. But yeah, that was kind of my first, foray into the digital space.
And then you've worked with some of the big names in the industry. You went, you were at Maker Studios for a while.
Yeah.
Pre-Disney.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was there through the acquisition, and left probably about 6 months afterwards.
And then Style Hall.
Yeah.
And then
that was also during the acquisition.
Yeah. And then on to, and I had not heard of it, but I looked them up. YMU Group.
Yeah. So YMU was previously named James Grant Management, and it's a UK-based company. They're now the largest management company in the world through a series of acquisitions, but initially started in the US representing soccer players. So there were a few of us who came over from Style Hall to open their LA office with management of social influencers. And that was my kind of first foray into management directly. I had always been on the sales side of the business prior.
And then when did you come up with the idea, or when was it conceived of starting your own company?
From day one, I wanted to start my own company. I think from a little kid, the only thing I knew was that I didn't want to work for somebody else. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to be my own boss. I don't know if that's problems with authority or, but I just, throughout my career, I never really knew kind of what it was. I didn't know what I would do outside of kind of, I could consult, right? I could freelance, but to me that felt too loose. And it was, I was just kind of floating around some conversations, couple of months before I left, and that's actually not true. It's probably six or 7 months before I actually decided to go, with a good friend, and then eventually one of the clients who ended up leaving with me. But I said, I think I can do this on my own. I have a different way that I want to approach this. And at the time, I wasn't actually even a manager. My job was to broker brand deals between our clients and, the partners they ended up working with. So I worked across all of our clients rather than focusing on a couple of them. But through that, I developed really close relationships with a few. And, it was kind of, I think being on the outside of it, not being so much in the day-to-day of the management, that allowed me to say, like, I just don't think this is it. I think there's another way to do this, and I'd like to do it differently. So let's try it. And here we are.
I am going to pivot again, and we are going to go 73 questions a la Vogue.
Okay.
The difference is I've not given you the questions in advance, so you don't have the pad answer.
I have no idea.
Okay. What question do you ask to find out the most about a person?
It's not a good sign that I'm stumped on the first one, is it?
No, it's the hardest one, frankly. I have a lot of this. I asked this of all the guests, and I have a lot of people pass.
You didn't go to Ohio State, did you? No, I'm just kidding. Who's your biggest inspiration?
Who is your biggest inspiration?
My parents. I know it sounds so cheesy, but they've really done an amazing job with working their way up. And I mean, immigrant life is not an easy one in this country.
When it's safe to go out and COVID-19 has been kicked, what are the first two things you've missed and want to do?
I would like to go to Mexico and lie on a beach. That's been top of mind for quite some time. And again, this is going to sound so cheesy, but I want to hug my mom. My mom has an autoimmune disease, and so I haven't been able to actually touch her in 6 months, and I'm not even a hugger, so that's a big deal.
What TV channel doesn't exist but should? The Michigan Football Channel, probably.
Well, I like to call that the Big Ten Network.
So I guess it really does exist.
Yeah, I think there's thousands of channels. I think there's, I honestly, I don't watch that much TV, so.
What's your favorite movie?
Dirty Dancing.
What's your guilty pleasure? Dirty Dancing. Football.
My guilty pleasure. I mean, I have 3 dogs, so I guess I guess being a dog mom.
Okay. What kind?
I have 2 Chihuahuas and a Jack Russell. They're all rescues, so all some version of a mutt.
Yeah. No, we rescued a golden retriever about a year and a half ago and did a DNA test on him. He has 39% golden retriever.
No.
20% super mutt, which means it's so muddled they couldn't even tell what it was.
Those are the best, though.
Yeah. What piece of entertainment do you wish you could forget you experienced so you could experience it again for the first time?
Something so good. I have seen Rent on Broadway 9 times. And while it hasn't gotten old, I think I would like to see that experience. And the first time I saw it, I was quite young, and I'd like to see it again for the first time at this age.
Tell me something, and I will not ask how old you are. Tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you.
Nobody agrees with me.
But it's true.
Yes. No. I know a lot of things to be true that people would probably dispute. If college football was played, Michigan would win a national championship this year.
And the laughter is not a comment. How do you consume content? What's your favorite platform?
I end up consuming most of my content on mobile, but I love to read. I'm a big Kindle user.
Favorite book?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I have read a lot of late. My favorite recent book, I loved Where the Crawdads Sing. I think that was a fantastic book.
I'm going to shift hats again now, or shift topic.
Yeah.
It's prediction time. So
okay.
It's time for you to get out your crystal ball. Will Microsoft buy TikTok?
I'm going to say no.
Will TikTok exist if they don't?
Yes.
Will Instagram Reels take off?
No.
Have you tried to use it? It's so hard.
I find it very confusing, but I also find TikTok confusing. So.
Yeah. It's like when they changed the algorithm on Snapchat.
Right.
I was looking through some of the questions that we've already touched on. I didn't want to do it again.
Sure.
What's the next big thing?
Quibi? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I think the answer to this is different than it was 6 months ago, and not because COVID's going to change everything, but I think you're going to see a return to in real life. I think people are going to crave in real life experiences. So I think platforms that have some element of meetup or kind of social side to it, I think that's going to take off.
And I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Where can people find you on the internet?
On the internet. That's funny. I guess I'm findable, but I'm kind of trying to keep a low profile.
Give us your company's webpage.
Yes. So moondustmgmt.com. And we also are on Instagram at moondust_MGMT.
And thank you.
That's it for this time. If you enjoyed our podcast, please write a review on iTunes and tell your friends to subscribe. If you have any questions about influencers or suggestions for future episodes, email them to John at Pfeiffer@pfeifferlaw.com. Thank you for listening.